With respect to the role of feelings and emotions in the creation of difficulty and as a focus of treatment, neurotics are very different from disturbed characters. With a good neurotic, they need to focus on their feelings. It's their unresolved sensitivities, their unresolved emotional conflicts, their painful feelings and issues that need to be the subject of conversation and the focus of some attention. That's the nature of their trouble in the first place. With the disturbed character, it's not how they feel about things that is the main issue. The main thing at issue is how they think about things, the attitudes they have, and the kinds of behaviors that their twisted thinking and their erroneous attitudes predispose them to making. They act in certain ways because they think in certain ways. And they've formed attitudes over time that lead them to believe that it's okay to engage in these behaviors. So instead of focusing on how they feel, well, how do you feel underneath this? That's appropriate if you're dealing with a neurotic. It's a secondary issue. It's not that important. Now, right now I can sense some mental health professionals in the audience just bristling at the thought. What do you mean feelings aren't important? That's what we do. Yeah, that's what we do with neurosis. And because most of us are neurotic, that's how we think most people need to focus and concern themselves. This is not the bigger issue. We can deal with that later. If there's underlying neurosis, we can deal with that later. The bigger issue is to focus on the twisted thinking and the dysfunctional attitudes that precipitate a whole roster of maladaptive and socially harmful behaviors. That needs to be the focus. So, another big difference. It occurs in relationships too. This is what traps many individuals who are in problem relationships. They start to thinking, I wonder what must be going on underneath it all, how he must be feeling, how she must be feeling, that's prompting this outrageous behavior. If I could just understand that, if I could just understand how they're feeling underneath, I'd have the key to unlock this whole thing. No, because that's not the issue. And many times what you see on the surface with respect to what appears like an emotion-driven behavior, and we'll talk about this later, again in more depth, especially like with the brandishing of anger. Sometimes the brandishing of anger is a powerful manipulation tactic that doesn't really have any genuine anger underneath it at all. In other words, when the person displays it, they're not angry at all. They just want you to think that they're full of rage, that they're outraged at what you just did. This is a tactical maneuver because you start to feel, you think, my God, what did I do to make him feel so strongly? Great manipulation tactic. Doesn't mean you shouldn't take it seriously, and doesn't mean something bad might not really happen to you. Okay? But what I'm saying is that to focus on how the person's feeling rather than how they're behaving, and especially the kind of thinking and attitudes that give them rise to behaving the way they're behaving, is a mistake. With the disturbed character, the focus needs to be on the way they think and the attitudes they have and the ways they behave, not on how they're feeling. We leave that for neurosis. One other point with regard to this is that, and this is another distinguishing characteristic, is that because the unresolved feelings engender a certain amount of anxiety and apprehensiveness in the neurotic individual, they're oftentimes reluctant to actually get into their feelings or talk about their feelings. Whereas the disturbed character is very willing to go there. And as a matter of fact, if they have you read right as a traditionally minded therapist, they figure that's where you probably want to go anyway. And they'll gladly oblige you. So the fact is that it's another distinguishing characteristic. And so even though the neurotic individual might be a bit apprehensive, sorting through their feelings, that's what they need to do. In contrast, even though the disturbed character might be very, very willing to talk about how she made me mad, that's not where you need to go. That's not where you need to go.